The morning light filtered through the tall windows of our Kensington flat as I prepared Daniel's coffee with practiced precision, 2 sugars. A splash of oat milk served in the ceramic mug from our Cornwall anniversary trip. 7 years of mornings had made this ritual as automatic as breathing. Daniel emerged already dressed in his tailored navy suit, checking his phone with the intensity he applied to architectural blueprints. At 34, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never truly failed at anything that mattered. "Thanks, love," he murmured without looking up. His fingers briefly brushed mine contact that once sent warmth through my entire being, now feeling perfunctory. "The Henderson project presentation is today?" I asked, though I already knew. I had helped him prepare the night before. Big client could be the breakthrough we need. He glanced up briefly, his blue eyes already calculating. "I might be late." "Tonight, you know how these things go." I did know. The late nights had become more frequent, the explanations more vague. Where once Daniel would return energized and eager to share his victories, now he came home drained and distant. After Daniel left, I stood in our suddenly quiet flat. The space felt simultaneously too large and too small, expansive enough to echo with loneliness, yet suffocating in its familiarity. I had decorated every corner with care, but now it felt like a museum of someone else's life. At 31, I had learned to make myself simultaneously visible and invisible, present. Enough to be relied upon, subtle enough never to outshine. My job at a shortage marketing firm paid well, though Daniel's practice generated more income. I had convinced myself this arrangement was practical, even progressive, but somewhere along the way, I had begun to disappear. It had started small, declining. A photography workshop because Daniel needed help with a client meeting. Then came larger sacrifices. The freelance photography work abandoned when Daniel's practice took off and he needed me at networking events, to charm clients' wives, to be the perfect partner who made him look successful. My professional Canon camera now sat buried in our bedroom closet beneath winter coats and forgotten dreams. 3 months later, the discovery came on a Thursday evening when Daniel was supposedly at a late site visit. I had been looking for our shared iPad when I found it charging in his study, displaying his messages. The name at the top read Amelia K. My finger hovered over the message thread. Part of me could simply close the tablet, continue uncomfortable. Ignorance. But another part, one that had been growing stronger, needed to know. The messages weren't explicit, but they were intimate in a way more devastating than sexuality. Inside jokes. Plans for a weekend away Daniel had told me was a solo work retreat. And photos Daniel laughing in ways I hadn't seen in years with. A petite blonde woman who looked everything I was not. The most recent message. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've missed you." I set the tablet down with steadier hands than expected. I walked to the kitchen, poured wine, and sat looking out at London's skyline. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone for comfort. Instead, I smiled, not from happiness, but from sudden crystalline clarity. The way I'd been carrying constant anxiety about being good enough, supportive enough to keep Daniel's attention lifted from my shoulders like fog burning off in sunlight. I wasn't losing Daniel. I was being set free. Over the following weeks, I began rebuilding myself with methodical care. I charged my camera and began carrying it to work, photographing during lunch breaks. I signed up for online photography courses, studying evenings while Daniel attended his increasingly frequent meetings. When my university friend Sarah invited me to a gallery opening that conflicted with Daniel's monthly firm dinner, I accepted. Immediately. "I can't make it tonight," I told Daniel as he adjusted his tie. "Sarah's opening." Daniel paused, meeting my eyes in the mirror. "Is it important?" "Yes," I said simply. "It is to me." At the gallery opening, I met Marcus, a travel photographer who mentioned an upcoming Edinburgh workshop led by a renowned documentary photographer. "You should apply," he said, studying photos I showed him on my phone. "You have something. A way of seeing that's uniquely yours." That night, I applied. When the acceptance came 3 weeks later, it conflicted with Daniel's birthday weekend, a celebration he'd been planning for months. "My birthday weekend? Claire, everyone's expecting you there." "This is important to me," I said calmly. "We fought our first real argument in years." Daniel employed every strategy for getting his way: guilt, logic, manipulation. But I had discovered something stronger than my need to please him, my need to reclaim myself. I went to Edinburgh. The workshop was transformative. For 5 days, I immersed myself in my art, working with master photographers who challenged me to see beyond surfaces, to find stories hidden in every frame. I photographed Edinburgh's ancient streets at dawn, capturing the interplay of light and shadow on weathered stone. I documented the faces of strangers, an elderly man feeding pigeons, a young mother pushing a stroller, a street musician lost in his melody, finding in each frame a story of resilience and hope. On the 3rd day, Helena assigned us to photograph something that represented our personal journey. While other students chose obvious metaphors, bridges, doorways, crossroads, I found myself drawn to a small garden tucked behind a centuries-old church. There, I discovered a rose bush growing through the cracks in a stone wall, its roots somehow finding nourishment in the most unlikely place, the image. I captured delicate pink petals emerging from harsh gray stone would later become the centerpiece of my Berlin exhibition. But in that moment, standing in the quiet Edinburgh garden, I simply knew I was photographing my own resurrection. My instructor, Helena Marchetti, whose work had graced National Geographic and Vogue covers, pulled me aside on the final day. "You have something rare," Helena said, studying my portfolio with the intensity of a curator discovering a new talent. "Your work has honesty, vulnerability. In a world full of people trying to show off, you're trying to show truth." She handed me her business card. "I'm curating a group show in Berlin next year, emerging artists exploring transformation. I'd like you to submit." That evening, I called my sister Emma from my hotel room, something I hadn't done in months. "You sound different," Emma observed after I shared news of the workshop. "Lighter somehow." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I'm remembering who I used to be. Who I was supposed to become before Daniel?" The question hung in the air. Emma had never liked Daniel, had always felt he diminished me somehow, but she'd learned to keep her opinions to herself. "Before I forgot myself," I corrected gently, I returned to London with my heart full of possibility. Our flat felt different, smaller, as if my expansion had revealed its limitations. Daniel picked me up from Heathrow, his greeting polite but cool. During the drive home, he asked perfunctory questions about my trip, but I could sense his discomfort with my obvious excitement. "You seem very energized," he observed as we sat in traffic. "I am," I said simply, watching London stream past the car window with new eyes. I found myself automatically composing shots the way afternoon light caught the glass of office. Buildings, the expressions of pedestrians waiting to cross streets, the urban poetry I'd been blind to for years. That night, as I unpacked my camera equipment and sorted through the hundreds of photos I'd taken, Daniel hovered in the bedroom doorway. "It's quite a lot of gear," he said, watching me organize memory cards and lenses with the care of someone handling precious artifacts. "I'll need it for the work I'm planning," I replied, not looking up. "The Berlin thing?" "Among other things." I could feel his discomfort growing, though I couldn't yet articulate why. Later, I would understand that Daniel was witnessing the birth of a version of me he had never seen, confident, purposeful, claiming space in our shared life without asking permission. I set up a dark room in our spare bedroom, transforming storage space into creative sanctuary. The room had always been designated for someday guests, someday a nursery, someday something meaningful. Now I claimed it for myself, installing developing equipment and hanging prints to dry like prayer flags marking my territory. "Helena thinks I should submit to a show in Berlin," I mentioned, hanging prints to dry. "That's ambitious, Daniel," said from the doorway, something unreadable in his expression. Over the following months, as my confidence grew and my work gained recognition, the dynamic in our relationship shifted in ways that neither of us had anticipated. Daniel began to display behaviors I had never seen before, a subtle competitiveness that emerged whenever I mentioned my photography successes, a tendency to minimize my achievements with faint praise like, "That's nice, darling," when I showed him positive reviews of my work. When I received my first paid commission photographing a small gallery opening for a lifestyle magazine, Daniel's response was telling. "How much are they paying you?" he asked immediately. When I told him, he laughed. "That's barely enough to cover your film costs." "It's not about the money," I said quietly. "It's about professional recognition." "Of course," Daniel agreed quickly. But something in his tone suggested he found my priorities naive. The night I received Helena's email about the Berlin exhibition, I made Daniel his favorite dinner lamb with rosemary. the meal I prepared countless times for his work celebrations. But when I shared my news, his reaction was markedly different from the enthusiasm I'd expected. Berlin, he repeated, as if the word itself was foreign. That's quite far. It's one of the most prestigious galleries in Europe, I explained. Helena says emerging artists would kill for this opportunity. And you have to be there for 2 weeks? I nodded, watching his face carefully. There are meetings with curators, interviews with art publications, networking events. It's how careers are built. The word careers seemed to hang in the air between. Use like a challenge. This time I felt no shock, just quiet satisfaction of a puzzle piece clicking into place. I'd been preparing for this moment, building myself strong enough to handle complete truth. That evening, while Daniel attended another client dinner, I went through our shared devices methodically. I found months of messages, photos from trips I'd never known about, evidence of a parallel relationship flourishing while ours withered. The final thread made my decision. When are you going to tell her? Amelia had written. Soon, Daniel replied. I just need to find the right moment. I set the phone down, poured wine, and continued building my new life. 3 months after Edinburgh, the email that changed everything arrived. Dear Ms. Morgan, we are delighted to inform you that your series, Hidden Light, Finding Beauty in Urban Shadows, has been accepted for our upcoming exhibition, Metamorphosis, Women Artists in Transition at the Kunsthalle Berlin. That evening, when Daniel returned from another late meeting, I was waiting with champagne. What's the occasion? I got into the Berlin exhibition. My photographs will be shown at the Kunsthalle. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's a big deal. It is. I'll need to be there about 2 weeks, meetings, interviews, networking. I watched his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. For 7 years, we'd operated on unspoken understanding that Daniel's career was our shared priority, while my interests were hobbies to accommodate when convenient. The final confrontation came 6 weeks before Berlin. When I found Daniel sitting with my laptop open, my email displayed. I think we need to talk, he said. Were you going through my private emails? I was looking for insurance information. Your email was already open. A transparent lie, Daniel leaned forward with the vulnerable expression that had always managed me effectively. I'd been thinking about us. About taking the next step. He produced a velvet box. Marriage, I love you, Claire. I want us to be a team. The timing was so obviously calculated to derail my independence that I felt insulted, rather than flattered. When did you buy this? His hesitation told me everything. Last week. The same week my magazine profile published. The same week I received more exhibition invitations. Daniel, can I see your phone? His face went white. Why would you? I'm trying to propose because I already know about Amelia. The silence was complete. Daniel's face cycled through denial, anger, defeated resignation. How long have you known? Months. And you didn't say anything? I walked to our window. I was building myself back up. I needed to be strong enough to leave. Leave? Claire, the affair doesn't mean anything. My career, the pressure, it's not about the affair, I said, turning to face him. It's about you thinking I was weak enough to accept a proposal from a man cheating on me. Even now, you think you can manage me. I began packing a suitcase. You don't love me, Daniel. You love the idea of me. You love having someone who disappears when convenient and reappears when needed. But that person doesn't exist anymore. Don't throw away 7 years for some fantasy about being an artist. I paused, looking at him with compassion. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm picking up pieces of myself that I scattered to make room for your dreams, and I'm putting them back together. 3 weeks later, I boarded a flight to Berlin. The exhibition exceeded every dream. My photograph cinema explorations of finding light in dark places resonated powerfully with viewers. Standing in the gallery, watching strangers connect emotionally with images I'd created, I felt completion that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. Berlin led to other exhibitions, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Barcelona. My photography evolved. As I traveled, capturing not just landscapes, but stories of women who'd chosen to redefine themselves. My series, After the Leaving, documented women who'd walked away from lives that no longer served them. Each story was different, but they shared. Common thread, the moment of choosing themselves over others' expectations. My work attracted serious attention from major galleries and publications. I was profiled in Vogue, interviewed on BBC, invited to speak at conferences about women in arts. 1 year later, my phone rang with a familiar number. Claire, Daniels. Voice was different, humbler, less certain. I saw the article about your Amsterdam show. Congratulations. Thank you. I've been thinking about what you said. About loving the idea of you rather than actually loving you. I think you were right. I waited. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking you for granted, for betraying your trust, for trying to make you smaller when you were meant to be this. Looking out Amsterdam canals, I felt only compassion. I forgive you. Is there any chance we could try again? Daniel, I hope you've learned to love someone fully as they are, rather than as you need them to be. But that someone isn't me. Because you can't forgive me? Because I don't need to. I don't need your love to feel complete. I don't need your approval to validate my choices. I don't need anything from you except knowing what happened taught us both something valuable. Are you happy? I considered seriously. Was I happy? I was successful, independent, fulfilled professionally. But more than that, I was myself completely, unapologetically myself. Yes, I said, I am. 6 months later, I stood in the Tate Modern surrounded by my photographs, larger-than-life images capturing poetry of transformation, beauty of becoming. The exhibition was called The Art of Letting Go. The opening night was everything I'd never dared dream. But the most meaningful moment came when I spotted Daniel in the crowd, studying my work with intense focus. Beside him stood a new woman, not Amelia, but someone who carried herself with confidence of a person never asked to become smaller. Our eyes met across the gallery, and Daniel offered a small, honest smile. I smiled back, feeling nothing but gratitude for what we'd shared, what I'd learned, for the path that led me here. Later, as crowds thinned, Daniel approached. Congratulations, he said simply. Your work. It's extraordinary. Thank you. I understand now, he continued, what you meant about finding yourself. About not needing someone else to complete you. I nodded. I hope you find that too. I think I'm starting to. He glanced toward the woman waiting patiently. Across the room. Her name is Sophie. She's an architect too, but she makes me want to be better, not smaller. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. We stood together for a moment, two people who had once shared everything and now shared only. The wisdom that comes from learning to let go gracefully. I'm glad you're happy, Daniel said finally. I'm glad we both are. As Daniel walked away, I turned back to my photographs, images of transformation, stories of courage, celebrations of choosing authenticity over approval. This was who I had always been underneath all the compromises. This was the woman my mother had recognized, the artist Helena had encouraged, the inspiration others needed. This was Claire Morgan, not as anyone's supporting character, but as the author of my own extraordinary story, and my story was just beginning.